building walls.
It's harder than ever to get onto the housing ladder, so a few brave, ordinary people are resorting to the seemingly impossible.
This gets the adrenaline going.
Building their own home from scratch for less than £100,000.
If we tried to buy a house with that space, we couldn't afford it.
Architect Piers Taylor and me, Kieran Long, are back and coming to the aid of 6 families attempting this toughest of challenges.
It's difficult looking at the budget and your bank account is literally going down. Yeah.
We'll try to help them with design dilemmas.
You arrive at a blank wall. I mean, is this what you want?
Challenge them to think bigger.
Just inspires me to want to go home and crack on with it.
And search out innovative solutions that make the most of their meagre budgets.
Ooh, look at that.
We'll all be pushed to the limit.
Oh no.
As we attempt to turn these ordinary self-builds into outstanding homes.
If anyone thinks it's easy, they're an idiot.
This time, Andrew and Claire dream of building a modern farmhouse.
Oh, look at that. 40 minutes to this stage.
But will they end up with a glorified mobile home?
It's really important that we all realise what we're building.
And in financial ruin.
We've got over £10,000 of credit cards now. It's something I feel very, very uncomfortable about.
Andrew and Claire have ditched their jobs and gambled everything they have on a brave new start. But they still don't have the one thing they really need, a family home.
Pretty much everything that we had has been spent in establishing the farm. I was in the garden centre industry. It was very frantic, very busy, very stressful. This has its moments, but it's a very relaxed, very informal, very calming way of making a living.
Come on then, let's go and feed those animals.
In life, if you don't take a chance, nothing's ever going to happen. We could just be 2 people, living in a normal street with normal jobs, but I don't think that would make either of us happy.
Yeah, Miss Goosey!
Andrew inherited 8 acres of Berkshire farmland from his mother, and 3 years ago, their huge dream began to take shape.
When we had the first batch of 2,000 hens delivered, I'd literally never held a chicken before in my life, so it was all new to me.
Andrew has been married with kids before.
Right, who's hungry?
But found a new start with Claire. She was a single mum to Tallulah and a townie, working in the business world.
My idea of going back to nature was to stay in a budget hotel.
Together they had their son Edward and have spent every waking minute striving to make their fledgling business a success.
Morning, girls.
But with 5,000 chickens laying 1.5 million eggs a year, it's hard work.
It's 7 days a week, 365 days a year, early mornings, late nights, locking the birds up and things like that. So living on the site is a must.
With no existing farmhouse, the only option is to live in a caravan.
This is the dining room, office and kitchen. We're all very on top of each other. You can't really escape. Lula's bedroom. We can't open wardrobes, and that is the washing facilities for all of us. When we're really cold or if we want a bath, then Andy and I do actually sit in there cross-legged, trying to pretend that we're in a bath.
Andrew and Claire have risked all their money on building the life they dreamt of. They have the plot, but very little cash left, so they've staked the farm against a mortgage to finance the entire build.
1, 8, 9, 10.
So much has been invested, both financially and emotionally, there is no turning back. So the only plan we have is to build a house here and, spend the rest of our lives here.
comply with planning laws, Andrew and Claire's house must be easily removable from the site if their farm business fails. In just one evening, they sketched a design for an incredibly basic single-storey home. The frame sits on 15 concrete pads instead of conventional foundations. The outside will be chalet-like, clad in treated wood with metal tiles on the roof. Inside, one half will be a large open-plan kitchen diner with one structural support post in the middle. The other rooms will be down a long windowless corridor, including a small office, bathroom, 2 kids' rooms, and at the very end, Andrew and Claire's bedroom. I'm worried they haven't designed a house, just a bigger version of the caravan they've already got.
Hi.
Hi there.
How are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Their plot is an exposed site in the middle of their farm. They're financing the build entirely via a loan. So how much are they expecting it to cost?
What's going to be the budget of this?
The builder has said for 60 grand he'll build it. We've allowed 10 to do a bit of groundwork, so that brings us up to 70.
And what kind of contingency have you got in the budget for mishaps and
there won't be any.
Really? So you really can't afford for a single thing to go wrong on this build? How far away are you from moving into this building, do you think?
Oh, from moving in or starting?
Yeah. No, from moving in. From moving in. When's the end?
Summer. I think the end of the summer I would like to be in.
Yeah.
And I think that is achievable with a fair wind.
Yeah, I mean, the end of the summer is clearly October.
Yes.
Yeah. Clearly not.
With late summer just a few months away, this build is going to move fast. The frame could go up in a matter of days. Piers and I urgently need to help them make a family farmhouse, not just an upmarket mobile home in a field.
Andrew and Claire have a real job on to deliver a good building, I think. They have a kind of a building that has to be semi-temporary. How do you make this building feel permanent and not feel like a caravan?
Enjoy it for what it is, and what it is a beautiful shed, and we need to really explode this myth that agricultural sheds aren't beautiful. The big lofty spaces, the simple use of materials that are fixed together economically, they need to make a virtue out of economy and really look at materials that are cheap, so sheet material, profile metal, those sorts of things. The danger is that they'll clad this in an expensive material because they think it'll make it better.
To me, this building is not designed at all, and they desperately need help.
What separates this from a good building is actually quite a fine line. Spaces like corridors need a certain amount of generosity where people linger and gather and, move into spaces. So this is the most lazy form of long corridor here.
One of the most bizarre features is this structural column in the middle of the living space, which seems completely redundant.
Completely redundant. But then focus on how you can make this building a beautiful agricultural building in landscape, and don't try and make it into a bungalow.
The frame will go up in just a few days, so we need to act now and challenge every element of the home they're creating.
So this is it.
This is it.
What would be great, in fact, is just to mock up what you've designed at the moment, so I can just understand the implications of what does it mean to have a front door on the side of the prevailing wind. What do you look at? How will you know when people are arriving? All those sorts of things. And where does the kitchen sink? Those sorts of things would be really, really useful. Where's that mallet gone?
The best way to get Andrew and Claire to experience the home they've designed is to get them to build it.
We're going to the front door.
Okay, let's go to the front door then, yeah. So there is this slightly odd thing for me walking past everyone's bedrooms to get in.
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me is that Andrew and Claire haven't had this conversation, whereas I would expect everybody to get to the stage where they're about to build a house that they're spending significant amounts of money on. I would expect them to unpick all of this and work out, where does the prevailing wind come on? How do I get in?
The door's open inwards around us.
Then what about the look and the feel?
We're going to have the kitchen there.
It's a big journey of discovery, realising that small changes to buildings and houses make a huge difference. And this is your study in here, isn't it? Generally, one tries to minimise the amount of corridor. Here, you're spending £5,000 to make that, or something.
Right.
And you can only use it to get from A to B. You know, there are other ways of dividing up rooms.
Andrew and Claire's planning permission is for a long, narrow building, 20 metres by 6.4 metres. That can't change, so it's crucial to plan the interior spaces well.
The simple move of rethinking this wall would be a really good one, so that, you know, that was perhaps a more generous arrival into this area. Just that one move makes this corridor seem much less long.
Simply changing the angle of the study wall simultaneously opens up the corridor and the living area.
It's a kind of gateway into the rest of the house.
And it's interesting.
I think it's a great idea. Was that my idea?
Yeah, that was your idea. Should you move your bedroom door, in fact, to there, you know, so you enter straight into your bedroom.
Yeah, small space, yeah.
A small adjustment to the position of the master bedroom door also reduces the length of the corridor.
And for me, going up and down this corridor would then be a pleasure. And I think for me it's critical that you start to look at these things now, because your building is going to, you know, be unfolding at a rate of knots in front of your eyes.
Pierce's ideas have several advantages. Angling the wall between the living room and study will shorten the corridor, increase the sense of space in the main living area, and save money. Changing the position of the door at the other end of the corridor will add interest and make the master bedroom feel more generous. By carefully interrogating the construction now, they should also make every effort to remove the structural column which dominates the open plan space.
Yeah, I love that idea. Absolutely love it. It's been nice to reassess what we're actually building. It actually has made it come to life a little bit more. Looking at it and making these final changes actually feels like we're actually doing it. We're going to have a house.
With some of Pierce's major alterations included, construction begins. The simple timber frame means rapid progress.
40 minutes to this stage.
Half a house in 40 minutes.
And again. That's it.
Using the arse instead.
Andrew and Claire are saving around £90 per day on labour by helping Kevin the Builder whenever possible.
Oh, look at that. We're at about 2 mil out over 20 metres. Thought that moved a bit.
At 128 square metres, the house will be nearly 70% larger than the average new build home.
Just look how tiny the caravan looks.
Yeah.
Which means when we move in there, it's going to feel like
You could probably fit that caravan in there.
twice.
Four
No,
times.
4
easy.
times, yeah.
Easy 4
Yeah, let's
times.
have a cup of tea.
But the build could soon grind to a halt. There's been a complication with the paperwork that defines the boundaries of the land, so the mortgage funds Andrew and Claire desperately need have not been released.
The risk that we've taken is that we've started the project before having the money in place, but we just couldn't sit back any longer. I was going absolutely mad. And I've applied for a few credit cards and we've got over £10,000 of credit cards now, so it's something I feel very, very uncomfortable about. In order to keep Kevin on site, we need to keep him fed with materials. I think we need about £15,000 in the next fortnight, really. otherwise it will grind to a halt. I'm getting more and more agitated and anxious about the money situation.
With their finances on such a knife edge, they could easily blow this chance to get the beautiful modern farmhouse they're desperate for. I want to help them keep that vision uppermost in their minds as they make design decisions in the weeks ahead.
So I brought you to Suffolk because we're going to see a building that I love. I think it can teach lots and lots of lessons about how to keep a consistent vision, sort of internally and externally. So let's go and take a look.
Excellent.
Set in the rural landscape of Suffolk, Long Farm is the award-winning home of architect Lucy Marston, completed just 3 years ago.
I think the most important thing, in a way, is that this is a modern farmhouse, which is what you're trying to create, really. What do you think when you see this?
It looks stunning. It really looks beautiful.
I can see it's kind of like a grander version of what we're trying to achieve.
The build cost £560,000, so it is on a much grander scale. But as a long, narrow, unfussy building, I think it holds vital lessons for Andrew and Claire in creating a beautiful, modern, rural home connected to its surroundings.
I mean, the most obvious thing that I think makes this building, of course, feel like it's part of its context is just the simple form of this box, 1 room deep, with a pitch roof, which just echoes all of the barns and other pitch roof buildings around it. But also, materially, this beautiful brick wall in sort of English garden wall bond, and then oak. They're the only 2 materials really you've got going on here, and the oak is weathering to a beautiful silver.
Even a house like this has to be built to a budget. To help stick to it, the architect has chosen ordinary materials, such as the bricks and timber frame that any house builder might use. But she's then focused on putting them together in a bespoke way, to amazing effect.
So come in.
Inside, there's a lesson in tackling the design challenges of long, thin houses like Andrew and Claire's.
It's really interesting that this is a double-loaded corridor, a corridor with no windows, rooms in both directions. But actually it doesn't feel, you normally desperately try to avoid that as a designer, but actually it doesn't feel murky here. I think combining this joinery in that dark green with the white above it and the view out to the distance means that even a double-loaded corridor here just has so much quality. It's quite a difficult thing to do, but they've really solved that here.
The polished concrete's fantastic, because from there you get the shine off the light at the far end of the windows.
You could have lino or resin or ceramics or any number of materials of wide variety of prices that could give some of the qualities of light and reflection that this has.
I just thought of the hallway as just a means to get to the bedrooms. I hadn't even thought of it as a room.
The balustrade separates the stairs from the hallway.
I mean, it's so chunky, that's probably really 4 inches by 2, and it's really, really nice.
And adds a sense of depth and space to the hall. Vertical timbers inside and out give a consistency.
It looks a similar size to ours, actually.
Large glazing panels frame the views and muted colours echo the landscape.
One of the things that really makes it feel like so homely in here is this hearth, and it is lovely. But I think the really special thing is down here, where you see that the brickwork of this extends out beyond the glazing. So when you're stood where you are, you can see this brick piece is like one thing. It's almost extending that brick from the exterior inside. And I think that's something that you guys could really think about.
Every detail has been carefully considered to create a warm, family home.
I think today's been a real inspiration to get an idea of what our house can actually feel like. That it's that kind of whole modern farmhouse, but giving you that warm hug as you walk in.
It really makes you just open up your eyes, and sometimes it's about the detail. which we're so busy we haven't really had an opportunity to do.
As the house continues to grow, so too does the credit card debt, and it's starting to affect progress.
Hi Andrew, hi Claire.
Hello, Piers.
How you doing? Good to see you. So how's it all going?
Things are tough at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah,
And actually, we're having to it'd be quite nice to get the windows in, but that's 10% of the budget, so we're holding off on that. And we're buying and we're doing jobs that are relatively cheap to do, really.
Well, I can't wait to see what you've been doing. Wow, this is great.
There are also design issues to confront. Space in the main living area will be freed up by replacing the pillar with a truss, but it has had an impact on Piers' idea for the study wall.
Give me my bearings though, and this
This is the wall that was going to curve round, but we need it to support the joist.
Andrew and Claire have a big design challenge ahead to partition the study and living area without losing the sense of space. Every decision made on site now will determine whether this becomes a unique contemporary farmhouse or a mobile home lookalike.
very nice. Hi there.
Hello there.
How you doing?
Very well. Yourself?
It's Piers' first chance to talk to Kevin the builder,
So this is looking good.
and he's curious to hear Kevin's take on creating a sense of permanence in a home that's technically removable.
It's still built on the scheme of a mobile home, so we can be split in the middle.
Yeah. Remember though, this isn't a mobile home. This is a house that just has to be able to be removed. It's a kind of subtly different thing, you know. And I think it wants to be as different from a mobile home as it can possibly be.
Absolutely, yeah.
Completely.
Well, that's all right by me. I mean, as long as we're allowed to do that.
Yes.
You know, we got the plans and everything, and
Yeah.
I just build it from what's been passed on the plans.
Absolutely. So what's the next phase for you?
Well, we was hoping to get all these purlins across by the end of today, and the back gable ends up. Then we could put the soffits and the fascia boards on the outside.
I think the word fascia and soffit fills me with horror.
Does it?
And makes me come out in hives.
Right.
Because that is the language of a mobile home. Whereas rural buildings don't have fascias or soffits. They have very neat clipped eaves. It's really important that we all realise what we're building and just make sure every detail is considered perfectly. You don't want to build a building with a fascia board and an eaves, because I think if you do, it'll look like a mobile home. Whereas I think if you don't, if you build a really clever eaves with a really clipped gutter, it'll look like the most beautiful timber barn.
Well, we can
Cancel that order.
The detail that may bring Piers out in hives is an important one. Mobile homes, chalets and temporary buildings are built in the most conventional ways. An inexpensive roof material sits on top of supporting walls with a boxed-in soffit and fascia board to fill the gap. But Piers wants Andrew and Claire to expose the rafters. He also suggests using a hard-wearing yet delicate material such as corrugated metal for the roof. These ideas will help make their home feel designed and unique rather than off the peg.
It sounds like a tiny point, and it's so tiny in some ways that you can't even visualise it. But in a way, it's such a huge point for how a building looks, how it seems, how it reads, all the subliminal messages it gives out about where it belongs and what it is. Is it a bungalow or a mobile home, or a beautiful, considered, contemporary piece of rural architecture? But the bigger question for me is, every single one of these relationships that exists all around the building, who is driving them, controlling them, considering them, drawing them, weighing up the pros and cons?
Everyone's looking around for that person.
in your hands is the potential to make a really good building here. Details seem inconsequential, but actually they're part of really how you read and understand a building, even if you can't articulate why.
I'm pleased that you've raised it, because you can get really busy doing the stuff without worrying about the detail necessarily.
All the details that, to me, I didn't even know what soffits and everything were. I was just like, oh yeah, whatever.
For me, the buildings that you put up at the moment so far are fine, but they, in a way, feel slightly too temporary, whereas now there is a real opportunity to speak of permanence.
Yeah.
You know, this building will be here for a long time. You know, your children will have this building, and I think that's a really important thing to hang on to. Invest in the future, you know, not for just 3 years.
Despite all the pressures on them, Andrew and Claire are very open to learning more.
So this is it, isn't it?
With big decisions to make on exterior materials, Andrew is intrigued by a building he's spotted in a local vineyard, and he's asked Claire and Piers to take a look.
When I saw this a few weeks ago, I really liked the sort of the silvery feel to it.
The colour is really nice. Yeah, I like it a lot.
The storehouse at Wolf Oak Vineyard was designed by the owner, together with his joiner, and cost £45,000.
You need to get away from anything that looks like a garden shed, and garden sheds are kind of very thin timber, and I think if you use the same timber, but I would actually beef it up so that, you know, it's kind of inch boarding or something. You know, this is a really good, simple building that isn't over-designed, that just sits well in landscape. You know, I think this is beautiful.
But is this going to fit nicely? You know, I guess I can't see it at the moment, how it's...
Well, I mean, I too struggle with how it will fit in, but I'm sort of looking at the rural setting, and it doesn't look dreadful. To me, it looks really nice. I fully agree with the chunkiness of it. I think it needs beefing up slightly.
I mean, I would get your own tree and mill it. I mean, the raw tree is very cheap. Getting a sawmill in to do it on site is pretty cheap. And you'll save a lot of money. You've just milled your own timber. Huge amount of money.
Literally on site. Someone comes on site.
You can do anything you like. I mean, you could do all the floors and everything internally in timber.
For the roofing, Andrew and Claire are thinking of metal tiles, like the ones used on mobile homes. Piers wants them to reconsider.
I think I want to stand back here and see, I'm itching to see the metal roof. Yeah, so that's the roof, and that's just bog standard agricultural profile metal.
I actually quite like it.
That sample that you brought up that I've been trying not to look at actually is corrugated steel designed to look like a tile, so it's masquerading as something else. And one thing that farm buildings need to exude is honesty and directness, and the one rule is that your material can't pretend to be anything else. So the beauty of that is it is corrugated metal, and it is what farm buildings are made out of, and I think it sits beautifully in this landscape.
If you'd said to me about having, you know, a corrugated roof, I wouldn't have, you know, on paper I wouldn't have liked it at all. Actually, I really like it because it doesn't look too metally.
But I think that your other thing belongs on a caravan park, not a beautiful
it's
farm.
more of a mobile home.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Good. You're sold. We can go
No,
now.
I'm sold on that.
Fired up by what he saw in the vineyard, Andrew is off to buy timber.
We're talking about plucking out that one. What happens with these really small ones?
In the hope of making big savings, he's sourcing it direct from the head forester on a local estate.
Yeah.
Dominant tree and the one next to it. Here we have
It's a larch, aren't they?
these are larch, yeah. So
Beautifully straight, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's the first thing that strikes me, and not that many branches coming off them. So.
this is what we're aiming for. We're aiming for this sort of quality of timber. We're aiming for straight, clean, and we do that by selecting the right seed to start with, and then managing the crops. But to get here has been all the work. I mean, these trees are about 60 years old.
The trees will be cut to order, but estimating how much timber each one will yield needs careful calculation.
You know, off these trees you get probably 3 16-foot logs, and you might get a 10-foot off the top. So we're going to need 16 cubic metres of timber.
Okay.
Just to be safe, we're going to need about 20 trees, I think.
Okay.
20 odd trees, something like that.
The logs are delivered within 2 weeks of confirming the order, and with the sawmill on site, work on the cladding gets underway. With each tree costing £15 and the miser saw and operator at around £300 per day, Andrew's made a saving of around 1/3 compared to buying ready sawn timber.
We've worked out we need 390 boards at 2.4 metres. So it'll be certainly 2 days worth of cutting, I should imagine. The nice thing about larch is you don't have to treat it, so it can go straight up. Just tack it straight up and away you go.
Natural resin in the larch makes it rot resistant. It'll last at least 30 years, and potentially double that, whilst weathering nicely. Having seen the corrugated roof, Claire has ditched her previous choice of domestic tiles.
You know, we are on a farm, so to have a nod towards an agricultural building, even though it is a home, I think it's really important to help us blend in and look like the house has always been here, rather than some new monstrosity that's just, you know, shoved down in the field somewhere. Actually, this company that we found with the coated corrugated steel is a lot cheaper than the pressed tile that we looked at. So I think we've saved about £1,000 going on this.
It's a much needed saving because the financial pressures are extreme. As a part of the cycle of egg production, Andrew's had to replenish most of the hen flock.
We've just had to buy 3,000 chickens. It costs a little bit under £4.50, so that's about £13,500. And at the moment we'd have quite liked to have had that to help with the house build, really, but we've got to keep the business going.
3 months into the build, the paperwork needed for the mortgage still isn't ready. With his credit cards maxed out at 10 grand, Andrew has been forced to borrow a further £42,000 from friends and family just to get the house watertight and keep building.
Fortunately, a very good friend and a family member has stepped in and given me a bridging loan, which is fantastic because it means that we can keep we can keep the windows coming on and Kevin on site. The build was in danger of just grinding to a halt, so it's really nice. It's quite humbling that someone was prepared to lend me the money, quite honestly.
With no idea when they'll be able to pay back their friends, the couple focus on sourcing materials as cheaply as possible. Finding seconds of insulation saves them nearly £7,000.
Come on then, let's go and see what they're up to.
The money nightmare continues to take its toll.
Just keeping the funds coming in to keep the supplies coming in for Kevin it's a juggling act. It's a big juggling act, and I've been pretty stressed and waking early in the morning and then not being able to get back to sleep, but the fabulous news that I literally heard about an hour ago is that the bank have released the money, so as of tomorrow we can actually draw on our mortgage, which is a huge relief because everything's been up in the air.
Looking good.
That's isn't it?
Yeah, I can start paying off the cards and breathing a little bit easier and sleeping easier.
Friends and family can be paid back too. But finishing a 3-bedroom house to a high standard for less than £100,000 is still an enormous challenge. Planning rules mean the house had to be built above ground on pillars rather than sitting on conventional foundations. But Andrew is unhappy with the result.
From this angle you can see that it's at least half a metre high there. So we've got quite a lot of landscaping to do there really. It's the hard landscaping that I'm struggling with at the moment really. How we sort of landscape it so it doesn't just look like it's been plonked there.
Andrew's attempted solution aimed to minimise expense by scrimping on the quantity and cost of materials.
Well, I initially bought a few pallets of these block pavers. Claire and I sat and looked at it for a while and just thought it wasn't really in keeping with what we were trying to achieve. So it's about finding the right material at the right price that also fits nicely in with the environment really.
Andrew and Claire are at a crucial point in their build. They're desperate that their house doesn't just become a kind of mobile home sat on top of the landscape. Today I'm going to show them a building that I think relates really well to its site and uses a range of architectural strategies to achieve that. I'm hoping there are lots of lessons here for Andrew and Claire that they can take back and apply on their own house.
We've managed to get access to a private home in Bedfordshire, designed by Platform 5 architects.
So I'm really excited to bring you to this building today. It's a beautiful, simple, modernist house, and I think it fits really, really well in this landscape. And you can just see from here the way this timber box on the upper story kind of looks out over the meadow. I mean, it's still an issue for you guys, isn't it? How you connect your building to the lovely landscape and garden and so on around it. Is that still something you're thinking over?
That's the main focus now. The big trick is to try and make it not look like it's just a building that's just been plonked in the middle of a field, which it looks at the moment. So it is about making it fit within the landscape, because that was the whole point of the design of the building, is that it would blend in with the farm.
Well, I think this is a building that does some of those things really well. It's not a farmhouse, but it is a house that is on a large site that has had to find a way to, in a way, root itself in that landscape. So I'm excited to show you how they've done it.
Brilliant.
This creates a really beautiful atmosphere, doesn't it, this grass? What I really wanted to show you about this building is, I think, a kind of elegant and very straightforward solution to a problem you've got, which is the question of a building sitting proud of the grounds. And this single slate-covered plinth is the ground inside, it's the terrace out here, it's even the front doorstep, all on one single level, which of course is super accessible and useful. It gives you lots of usable perimeter, lots of places to put a table and chairs, lots of places for life to spill out into the outdoors. And I think that's something you guys really need.
I think it's absolutely stunning. Absolutely stunning.
My first feeling really is that a single surface all the way round is probably unachievable because there's such a lot of drop in some areas. And I quite like the idea of some of the paths raising up slightly and they're not all on one level actually.
I think it's such an interesting thing, isn't it? Sometimes you think it's landscape, it must be organic and therefore it should be wavy and curvy rather than hard. I don't think that's the choice. I think what you see here is actually just a platform that allows you to enjoy the garden. There's a real utility to this that you surprisingly might not get with the more kind of landscaped, kind of curvy profiles. Let's go and take a look around this side.
The garden has distinct zones, and this area cleverly uses gabions, metal cages filled with stone.
I think it's really nice how these gabion walls and this walled garden are actually right next to the front door. Why don't we go and take a look at how the front door access works, because I think it's really clever.
Andrew and Claire have front and back doors on opposite sides of the house, so their landscaping needs to signal to visitors which way they should go. Meadowview does this in a very simple way.
I think this little planter is quite an interesting detail. It sort of just directs you a bit towards the front door. It gives a bit of structure, so just this little bit of space in front of the house.
The inside reveals how brilliantly the use of one flooring material seamlessly links the interior and exterior, adding to the spacious feel.
It's just so beautiful how the view is immediately presented to you when you come in, isn't it? It's really wonderful.
It's so light and airy and beautiful. Really lovely view.
And the grasses, Claire, we love them outside, but they're almost even better inside.
Especially on a day like today.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, today's been fantastic to see how this building sits in the landscape gardens that they've created. Just inspires me to want to go home and crack on with it, really.
I've really enjoyed this building today because I just think it really elegantly and simply relates to what is a beautiful landscape and a lovely garden around it. I think Andrew and Claire have also got a lot out of it. If there was one concern I still have, though, it's when they talk about just how complex some of their ideas are. Andrew's undulating paths. They need to take a lesson from the clarity of purpose that this building shows and make a very simple and elegant solution to usable exterior space around the building.
I think when people think about the outsides of their building, they think about the elevations, they think about the composition of the windows and how it looks. But actually, how a building sits in the landscape is actually much more important than that. Andrew and Claire's house, at the moment, has been slightly plonked down on this ground, and how it sits in this landscape, and how then the new landscape allows you to experience both the house and their own territory of their farm. Those things really need to be considered now.
Andrew and Claire know they want their living room to open onto a patio, but beyond that, they have few fixed ideas. They need to be clear how each space will function.
Talk to me a little bit about how you see yourselves using these spaces.
I think the main bit for me is like the patio, the raised deck, because the doors open right out. I'd like to have them wide open and a space outside with a dining room table. But I want it quite high so I can hide all the kids' toys down the side.
Really, it's an extension of that space in there, isn't it? But it also, is the thing that connects the house with the garden, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think for me, what I'd like to do is mock this up, so we can actually just feel the shape and scale of it.
"40 bales of straw will help visualise plans for the patio area."
What, going down the gym tonight, Claire?
Tell me how far then you thought of going in each direction, actually.
Well, we'd always thought the width of the house seems sort of fairly straightforward, I guess. And then perhaps up to where Claire's standing there. But I don't know, maybe that's
actually,
not really
as you
big
stand
enough.
here, it isn't that big.
I mean, maybe it should be bigger.
What about also going that way so that this wrapped around and connected up with that? If you imagine people arriving, and that is your front door, which it is, they'll walk up there, and if you're not in there and they see people around here, they'll carry on walking, and it'll be a lovely place to arrive straight into.
So we never thought of it from this side. We were always going to wrap it around from the other side.
Right.
I don't know why.
Well, maybe this is a more practical side, actually.
Well, it's where the sun is.
Yeah.
Moving the bales around is a quick and easy way to see just how much the house could be transformed by the landscaping.
For me, I think this thing wants to come this way.
I think that it definitely should come to maybe 5 bales long.
Yeah, I mean, that's looking more like it.
Nearly doubling the size of the patio and creating a continuous sweep around to the front door will immediately make the house feel more embedded in its surroundings.
Remember this whole notion of the chalet that you're trying to get away from. If this was a chalet on a holiday park, it would have a little, terrace, sort of, probably 2 bales width out the front. This one move, I think, transforms the building. Doing this makes it into something completely different.
And it will soften it down into, because at the moment it is a box in a field.
Totally.
Andrew and Claire hope to sell the caravan and use the funds to pay for the landscaping. But inside, there's a problem with the partition that will be the key feature dividing the living area and study. Claire envisages a bookcase.
Here is going to be the bookcase, so you'll be able to see through it, and it'll be floor to ceiling with books, ornaments.
With money tight, bespoke joinery is out of the question, and Claire's stumped for alternatives.
We don't want to just put something up for the sake of putting it up. We want to really think about it and get it right. And I think it's going to be the biggest focus.
Piers has brought Andrew and Claire to a plumber's merchant to look for cost-effective materials to create their own architectural solution.
Yes, they're not the most glamorous of locations, but these places have interesting things inside them. So this is a place that distributes all sorts of different pipes and tubes, and really I want to try and find a material that we could use to make your shelves out of, or maybe not just a material, a system of building something that's quite quick and quite sort of improvised, and actually I hope quite cost effective.
Okay. Like scaffolding.
Yeah, but actually probably better.
Right.
Let's go and
I'm liking.
let's go and see. This is galvanised. I mean, this stuff is all beautiful. I mean, this is the sort of thing that I want to show you. So the principle of this is that you buy the tubing in 3 or 6 metres, either in galvanised or in powder coated. Then you buy any number of different fittings. That's how you join 2 tubes together. 90-degree bend. Yeah, that would be a floor fitting. Right. So screw that to the floor. Obviously, you then wind it up with a Allen key to secure it to the clamp.
It just gives us hundreds of different options.
It does,
doesn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that we've got a sloping ceiling,
absolutely,
just makes life a whole lot easier. If you had 2 pieces, and it obviously doesn't necessarily have to be this thickness, and then the scaffold board or a board straight on top of that.
Absolutely, yeah. And you could make up boxes if you wanted, pull things in and out.
I really like it.
So let's get a few and go and have a play.
Wiggly one.
A wiggly one.
Yeah. You're in your element.
I am. I'm having a great time. It's fairly straightforward and basic and simple.
It is, yeah. These fittings really are cost effective. From a trade outlet, the fittings are about £4 each, and the pipe ungalvanised is about £4 a linear metre, and I think it's more, about 50% more if you have it powder coated. So the galvanised option is cheaper. I mean, it's probably £300 of fittings or something off the top of my head.
If we had something bespokely made, it would cost thousands.
Yeah, absolutely. But think of the fun you'll have with this.
I think it's a boys' toys number. I think I'll go out shopping that day.
We're going to need a whole raft of different pieces. We've really struggled with how we can construct this bookshelf, but today I feel that we've now got the solutions to the problem, really. Yeah, we need those.
I think what's great about this system is that it forces them to design it. You can really have fun and let that sense of exploration take over.
Andrew and Claire are now battling to finish the job that will make or break the success of their house build. They need to make it sit in its landscape, so there are 140 tons of soil to be moved to level the site. Andrew's using free soil donated by a neighbour, saving at least £1,400. The sale of the caravan has helped pay for a far more expansive area of patio and path than originally planned. Upgrading to sandstone slabs throughout should unify the look.
We've actually faced the step with larch, so it sort of brings a little bit of the house onto the patio, if you like.
Using timber left over from the cladding also helps stretch the budget a bit further.
Piers has had a significant input into some areas of the house. I only wish she could come and help.
Brilliant. And that one.
Inside, the shelves dividing the study and living area are critical to the end result.
It seems really straightforward and fairly easy. However, it will be very much a trial and error today. We'll just see how it goes, really. Okay, now up. Push it in a bit more. Okay, that's it.
A statement piece, if it looks good, is amazing. A statement piece, if it looks rubbish, is going to make the whole thing look unfinished.
Andrew and Claire have been incredibly willing to adopt bold design ideas, but have they managed to bring them together to transform what was going to be a basic chalet into a unique, contemporary family home?
Andrew and Claire began this process trying to build almost the impossible, a modern 3-bed farmhouse for just £70,000. They spent the last year living in a tiny caravan with their entire family, sometimes bankrolling the build on credit cards. At the end, though, have they been able to meet the toughest challenge of all, to build a home that feels rooted in its site here on the farm?
10 months after they started building, Piers and I are back to see how successful they've been.
Hi there.
Nice to see you both.
Hi, Kieran.
Look at this. So nice to see you.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's done. It looks incredibly finished. I must congratulate you. And it does feel like it sort of belongs here somehow. I mean, that was one of the big challenges for you.
It was always how it will fit in on top of a hill in the middle of a field, really. So
Andrew's decision to cut timber on site and take control of his own building has had a big impact on the look of the house.
It's great to see the timber up and looking really chunky, and I'm sure it's going to get even better in the colour over time. But how do you feel about it? Does it have that sense of permanence that you were looking for?
Well, I really like it. We were struggling to know exactly how to clad it, and obviously Piers came up with this idea of storing our own timber, and that whole experience has been fantastic.
I absolutely love it, and the fact that it's even changing colour already.
One of the bits of a building I think is most important is how the roof meets the wall. And I remember coming here and suggesting that you lose this big boxy fascia.
We decided not to have the soffit. It was a fair old discussion about it, to be fair, I think.
There was a big discussion. I tried to persuade you to cut it off altogether, I think, and have this very clipped, singular building.
And we sort of
concealed gutter from
halfway, Piers.
Yes. You've chosen a metal chunky gutter and then using, just a very straightforward wiggly tin on the roof instead of the fake tiles that you're going to use. Those things speak of farms, they speak of permanence.
Well, we absolutely love it, and the fact that it is going to get better with age.
Does it feel like a temporary building inside?
No,
not at
I
all.
hope not. Have a look.
Shall we go and see it?
Yeah, come on.
Great.
Wow, this is fantastic. What a huge space.
It's amazing. And coming right into this space is great, isn't it?
We absolutely love it, that feeling of openness.
By reviewing the building structure and how they want to live, they've created a huge open plan area.
And I love the fact that you haven't got that central column.
Yeah, that was always going to be essential, wasn't it? The central column would have played havoc with this space.
And it's great how simple it is. I mean, I think, it has a south-facing terrace with good windows. The kitchen is very simple and acts as a place to linger, which is what you're doing now.
First thing people do is come in and
Yeah, and actually a lovely big space to arrive into. everything in here feels solid, robust and well made. And, you know, looking around, I can also see that these window reveals are non-standard. And, you know, just that kind of 2-inch thick bit of timber there, instead of a mean bull-nosed bit of MDF, feels great.
I really like the window reveals. It sort of brings a little bit of the wood inside. Originally, I don't know if you remember, we were going to plasterboard this, just following what was normal.
Building houses is often just a process of doing what people normally do. And to step outside that is pretty hard, because you've got to unpick everything.
The partition has defined 2 spaces and become a stunning piece of furniture.
This is one of my favourite bits in this room, in the whole kind of living area, because it has worked so beautifully. I really love it. I'm really pleased that we've got the separate study, but it is one big area.
Tell me how much it actually costs to do this.
The scaffold boards are about £5 reclaimed, £300 for the whole lot probably.
And it's much cheaper than it would be to build a tedious white wall.
And what it does is also reduce the effective length of this corridor.
The corridor has also been shortened by moving the master bedroom door. For Claire, getting out of the caravan has been a real milestone.
It was a huge relief to move, to actually be able to get in and out of bed without bashing up a damp wall.
And this is the bedroom.
Welcome to my boudoir.
That's fantastic.
The focus in the master bedroom is a bespoke wardrobe. Claire designed it using architectural salvage wood panels that cost just £250.
What does it mean to you and the family to have finished your first home together?
It's been absolutely amazing. The fact that we're in our first home together, but it's one that we've all created, and I think that means the most to me. I think, you know, it's made us even closer.
After life cooped up in the caravan, Edward now has plenty of space for his toys, and Tallulah has her own sanctuary. The cramped shower has been exchanged for a practical and inviting family bathroom. Outside, the house that once appeared plonked down on the site is transformed by a near doubling of the size of the patio.
So, the patio.
Amazing. This really kind of flows out into the garden, doesn't it?
It does, it's quite nice, yeah.
Did it ever feel really indulgent doing this when money was so tight? I don't think it is.
For me, it was more about, for me, how it sat in its environment.
It's amazing for me how this house and this patio feels completely embedded in this landscape now.
Yeah, it was always our biggest challenge.
The reality is, there have been many challenges, and it was never going to be easy to deliver a quality home on their tight budget. So how have they done?
Tell me how much money you had for this project and how much money you've ended up spending.
Originally we thought it was going to be 70,000, that was probably not really very realistic. We came in at about 89,000 for the house, and then we spent a further 8,000 on sort of landscaping.
But I mean, I must say, £89,000 for what you've got here is kind of astonishing.
It works out at £700 a square metre.
£700 a square metre is extremely cheap, especially for an environment of this quality.
Going along having no money, I think, has actually made this building better, because we've had to consider every last little screw, handle, you know, wall panel, everything has been really carefully considered and researched. But it's just lovely that we have got our own little kind of, you know, 8 acres of paradise.
To have built your own house on your own farm, and there's something really beautiful about that, and I love every minute of it.
I think what I like about the building is that it feels very natural, very inevitable. It doesn't really try too hard. It's made out of really good quality materials that'll age really well. It's full of light, full of space, and I think they've achieved a great deal.
Andrew and Claire are thrilled with their new home, and at last it's ready to receive the friends and family who supported them throughout. What will they make of it?
The ideas that she's come up with have been amazing. So, yeah,
I
really good.
That creative if it was
I
up
wouldn't.
to me.
Like that fencing,
Shelving.
shelving. We love that. We think that's really, really good. We're so proud about what we've achieved and the fact that we're in. This still doesn't feel 100% real, even though we live here.
It has been an amazing process, hasn't it? And I couldn't have done it without you.
Andrew and Claire have just made a brilliant job of this build. I'm so happy for them and so proud of them really that they've made such a high quality result out of a process that, let's face it, could have stopped at certain points. They were really on the rocks, they were running out of money, and this could have ground to a halt and perhaps never started again. They started out really with quite low aspirations, no more than a glorified porter cabin was supposed to come out of this process. But by looking at design and taking buildings seriously, they've ended up with a place that's perfect for them, and one that's emerged naturally from the way they live and what they like. Next time, Joe and Andy are trying to create an energy-efficient eco-home.
It's hard when you're not designers. Will that work? Will it not work?
There are things here that you can learn from.
It's wasted space.
But will their no-frills approach mean they end up living in a bunker?
It could be really harsh and cold if you're not careful.
Now, difficult decisions as BBC Two meets 3 children with life-threatening brain conditions and the neurosurgeons at Great Ormond Street. Then at 10, Catherine Ryan's here with Styles to Scare. The quarterfinals of Hair in an hour, whilst BBC Three's Defying Labels season continues now with the world's worst